This is 49ers Talk, brought to you by Big O Tires. When it comes to tires, they're the pros. With Big O brand exclusive ProTech Plus tire warranty, you'll get free flat repairs, replacements, and roadside assistance. Big O Tires, the team you trust. And it is that time, Jennifer. The 49ers have packed up, heading to the airport en route to Philadelphia, and what awaits them? It sounds like weather-wise won't be bad other than potential for wind, but I think it could have been a whole lot worse, right?
Oh, absolutely. It could be 40 degrees and rain. That is the absolute worst. I remember talking to George Kittle before they went to Cleveland. He's like, anything but rain. They'll take wind. They'll take snow. They'd much rather not have wind but have snow. But cold is much better than being wet and cold. So as long as there's no rain in the forecast, I think they're going to be much happier with the weather.
Yeah, I think, when you look at the challenges the 49ers have faced, like actually probably even in like club history, there are very few games, I think, like this, where if the 49ers go there and win, it'll be seen as kind of a hallmark kind of win. I think back to the game in Green Bay in the cold, well before, and that was when the Packers were the number one seed, right, heading into that postseason. 49ers won that game on the road. They had previously won the game against the Dallas Cowboys, but I think a lot of people thought the 49ers would win that game. And then going back many years, that cold game, the wind chill and just a frozen field in Chicago at Soldier Field where 49ers won that game. But this is kind of one of those games, I think, where if they can win it, it's going to be viewed upon as a really significant victory. And I think the two people, we always talk about the quarterbacks, and the quarterbacks do get a lot of attention. These two quarterbacks, I think the opinions of them or the national chatter is just kind of, I think it's different than how they're perceived locally. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, but nationally maybe doesn't get the respect he deserves. And I think probably the same way Brock Purdy, obviously beloved in the Bay Area, nationally maybe doesn't get the respect he deserves. So it really is a fun matchup from that standpoint as far as the challenges that face the 49ers and Brock Purdy. First season with that huge contract, it's kind of like, okay, let's see. Can he somehow find a way to get the job done in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think it's also been interesting that Jalen Hurts, who is known for being a very, very mobile quarterback, I remember Nick Bosa talking about how they needed to contain him from getting out onto the edge. He's running less. And what is everybody talking about in regards to Brock Purdy? How he can extend the plays with his legs. So the fact that those two are kind of going opposite each other in those directions is kind of interesting. I do think that the game really is going to be dependent heavily on who doesn't make the big mistakes, who doesn't turn the ball over. I think those are key things. If Brock Purdy, who has seemed to make much better decisions going towards the end of the season, not turning the ball over, if he can keep up that type of, trajectory, I think the 49ers will stay with it in the game. They're not going to get blown out. They have the firepower on the offense to keep up. So that's, I think, where the key is.
Yes, since Jalen Hurts became the starting quarterback for the Eagles, this is the fewest amount of rushing yards he's had in a season. He was up, 780, 760, 605, 630. And this year, 421 yards, 8 touchdowns, which is lower than what he's gotten. The other thing, I know people still talk about the tush push or whatever you want to call it, the brotherly shove. They haven't been nearly as effective with that. And their success rate every year has gone down. So I don't think that'll be a part of this game, really. When you think about it, I think it's going to be, who does well on first downs, who sets themselves up, and basically who's running the football better. Is it Saquon Barkley or is it Christian McCaffrey? And I would think that at the end of the day, as long as neither side has a bunch of takeaways or giveaways. I would think that the running game will more than likely kind of tell the story of this game when all is said and done.
Yeah, when you line up the rosters, it is really interesting, right? It's Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, it's Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, it is Lane Johnson, it's Trent Williams. You go down the line, and there's kind of an answer on each side of the line of scrimmage on the offense of how they match up. I think it's really about who controls the ball, especially in those opening drives. I mean, you look at how the 49ers had 2 early 3-and-outs and how it was playing catch up in that Seattle Seahawks game. They can't do that. But I do think that what Kyle Shanahan said on Friday is really important. He said they came in Wednesday. They felt like they had been through a bye week after those the 3 games that were the prime time, short weeks, no full speed practices. I think the fact that they got an extra day definitely kind of promises that they're not going to have that same type of performance that they did against the Seattle Seahawks when they go to Philadelphia.
If they do, then just get the buses and the plane warmed up at halftime, because they don't have any chance. No, I mean, that was a bad performance from the offense in week 18. There's no question about it. And, the question is now, what do they need to do? Will 20 points win this game? Will it be 24, 28, somewhere in there. I think the 49ers, even though they're facing a really good offense, they have to score, more than 20 points to give themselves a real chance at this game. And you mentioned the injury situation in the 49ers. And so this is how it looks. 49ers listed 7 players as questionable for this game. And I'll just kind of give you the thumbnail, watching them on the practice field Friday before they went through their practice and then head out to Philadelphia. Trent Williams is listed as questionable. I think he's going to play in this game. In fact, had a chance to talk to him in the locker room before they left. And he said he definitely feels more confident than he did a week ago. And he did speak like he's already in the game. He said there's always going to be a little bit of a concern with the hamstring injury. He says that he's pushed it this week on the limits that usually an injury like that requires. And he said that he figures it'll be in the back of his mind for a little bit, but once you get out there and the juices get flowing, the adrenaline starts flowing, he thinks that that'll just kind of take care of itself. So I think that's good news on Trent Williams. I'd say of the next guys, maybe Keon White. He was out there a little bit on Friday. I don't think Ricky Pearsall is going to play, but he might surprise me. I don't think D. Winters is going to play, but he might surprise me. Renardo Green showed up on the injury report, not with the neck, but with a foot situation. So he's questionable. I don't really have got a read on that. And then the other ones who are questionable, Luke Gifford, the linebacker, special teams ace, and also Jacob Cowing, who was not elevated. He was, they opened the window for him off IR. He's not going to play. So it very well might be the 49ers have to use their 2 standard elevations from the practice squad, and they might even have to bring somebody up to the 53-man, because the maximum you can bring up from the practice squad, 2 players. They might end up needing more than that just to fill out their 48-man game day roster.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. One note on Trent Williams, when I was watching him at practice on Thursday, this is his first hamstring injury. He's never had a hamstring injury. He's usually got the ankles. He's, had ankle injuries before. He was kind of standing up and bending forward from the waist, so kind of stretching out that hamstring. I definitely think it's on his mind. It was definitely on his mind during practice, but I think you're right. Once the game gets going, it's similar to Brock Purdy. He told us that he feels the toe when he warms up. He feels the toe after the game, but once he's in there playing, adrenaline carries them all through it, and I don't think they feel much during the game unless it's pretty severe. So I would think that Trent Williams plays as well.
Yeah, and there was no reason for the 49ers to even put him out there on the practice field unless they felt he had a real chance to play in this game. So, yeah, I do think he's going to play. Again, I'm not sure about Ricky Pearsall. I mean, that's a really painful injury, that posterior cruciate ligament injury that he sustained in the game against. Well, let's see, what game did he sustain that? Well, he aggravated it. He's aggravated it a couple times, but the
Right.
Bears game, and then he sat out last week's game against Seattle. So I didn't see him working out on a side field. Didn't see him running on Friday like I saw him on Thursday. So I did see him briefly in the locker room. I think that's probably a tough ask. So 49ers are going to have to do it in a lot of different ways. Here's what I kind of think they might have to do. I talked about how they got to get the run game going. There's no question about that. But I think they might have to throw on early downs, not get in that predictable situation where they're running on first and second down and now they're facing third and 6 or whatever, and they have to throw. I think that they might try to play it backwards a little bit in that, hit the Eagles with the passing game, maybe when they're not necessarily expecting it or when they really have to honor play action on those early downs. But ultimately, they're going to have to be balanced. They're going to have to show they can run the ball. They're going to have to run the ball effectively. They're going to have to run the ball between the tackles. They're going to have to get outside on occasion. This is a big game, I think, for George Kittle, who's had a frustrating season from an injury standpoint. But he will be a huge factor, I think, work in the middle of the field in the passing game, but also a major factor in helping Christian McCaffrey get going in the running game as well.
Right. The good thing that the 49ers have going for them is the fact that the Eagles' defense gives up yards against outside zone runs. So that's one of their weaknesses. So again, that chess match between Kyle Shanahan and Vic Fangio is going to be completely on display. I do think that Christian McCaffrey has a good game. I've watched a couple of the Philly games, and they do give up yards against the run. So as long as the 49ers can take advantage of it, and Christian McCaffrey is the best at, taking no space and getting yards out of it. So as long as he can do that, George Kittle out there being healthier than he was last week, I think that does help the run game as well. I mean, I always think when it's a game like this, that George Kittle line, when he goes up to Kyle Shanahan, he's like, run it again, and the success that they've had with the run game. So as long as they can get it going and not get behind the sticks, they'll have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they want to run the ball 30 times if they can, but in order to do that, you have to have success running the ball, and you have to pick up third downs with the passing game too. So it's a lot easier said than done. Hey, let's just run the ball 30 times. If you're not having success, you could get those 30 runs, but it could come on 10 3 and outs, and that's not going to win any game. So it will be an interesting game. I think Upton Stout is a guy that really takes on a lot in this game. And, we haven't really talked about the contributions of the rookie class all that much in recent weeks. Maiocco Williams out for the season with his ACL injury. Alfred Collins is playing some good football. Upton Stout is playing some good football. So those are two guys right there. And then after that, of course, Nick Martin, he couldn't really find his way onto the field on defense, and now he's been out with a concussion. With all the injuries at linebacker, this could have been his opportunity to make his mark. And the other one is CJ West. So, of those first 5 defensive picks that the 49ers have, 3 of them are going to play significant roles in this game. But it's a matter for the 49ers of who on defense has to step up, who is capable of making that play. We've seen both of those rookies, Alfred Collins, make a huge play. We saw Upton Stout with some plays earlier in the season, a big pass breakup that against the Cardinals early on that helped them win that game. So not just the rookies, but who is capable on that defense of stepping up and making a play. We'll find out on Sunday if somebody does do that.
There's a lot of young players on this team with a lot of potential, but it's all of it, playing sound football. It is listening to their coaches, not going off script. It's playing, with the fundamentals. And I think part of what they have going for them more than they did at the end of the regular season, again, is the time. It's the preparation, it's the rest, and the ability to kind of take a step back after 3 games that were all smashed together to kind of reset and then really focus on a game plan. It wasn't thrown at them. It wasn't a quick install. This is a week where they could take some time, and I think that's so important, especially for younger players. Guys like George Kittle and Trent Williams and Kyle Juszczyk, I think they can adapt to those short weeks. But when you have a lot of young players, and especially new players, when you look at Eric Kendricks as a linebacker, yes, he has a lot of experience, but not with the 49ers. Alfred Collins, it is, Bryce Huff in his first year. Those newer players need that extra time with their new set of coaches. And I know we're talking, it's the postseason and they've had all year, but I still think that there's this having to adapt to their new environment, and then having that extra day, a longer week, I think is going to really help them.
Yeah. I think we'll see how Sunday's game goes. I think, and I hesitate to even talk on this subject, but I think almost regardless, this season will be looked upon fondly from what the 49ers accomplished during the regular season. That doesn't mean that they go into the playoffs with any less pressure than the Eagles, because they're both playing for the same thing, right? I mean, the winner moves on, the loser goes home. But what I think that this does is it kind of brings home, and I know this is a point that Kyle Juszczyk wanted to make to his teammates, is that you never know when these opportunities are going to come along. I mean, the NFL is littered with players who were on playoff teams their first season in the NFL and never sniffed the playoffs again for the rest of their career. And so even though on paper you would think, boy, the 49ers are going to be better next year, those young players are going to be a year older, a year more experienced. They get Bosa back and Warner back and Maiocco Williams back, and they can add a draft class with 7 players chosen in the first 4 rounds. You can't take that for granted. And so that's why I say the 49ers have to feel as much pressure as the Eagles do, even though the Eagles are the ones coming off the Super Bowl title, because you can't ever just assume that better days are ahead. Look at the Detroit Lions. After they blew that 17-point lead against the 49ers, or the 49ers came storming back to win that game in the NFC Championship game, the Lions haven't won a postseason game since then. So you never know when your window is open, when your window is closing. This is an opportunity for the 49ers, even though on paper, maybe they don't match up against some of the other teams in the playoffs, but the game's not played on paper. They have to believe that this is their year, and they got to take as full advantage of this as possible.
Yeah, I think there's a definite feeling of a need to continue on from the vets like Kyle Juszczyk, like George Kittle, like Trent Williams. These guys are getting towards kind of the sunset of their career. So the opportunities for them to get into the postseason and go far in it, those opportunities become less and less. And I know that last year, after not, having a really challenging season, 6-11, not making it to the postseason, while there was that disappointment because it was that Super Bowl or bust mentality preseason, but they spun it forward. They're like, all right, we're going to regroup. We're going to add some new players, younger players, add youth to the roster. We're going to heal up. We're going to be ready for the season. And then what happens at the beginning of the season? They lose Nick Bosa. They lose Fred Warner. So for them to be in the position that they're in, I mean, I think, you said they're going to look back on the season fondly. I think they have to. I mean, when at week 6, I don't think anyone would have predicted that they'd be 12-5. I just don't think they would think that. Kyle Juszczyk also had a really interesting, I guess kind of comparison. In 2023, they were 12-5, but they stormed through the whole season. They had Deebo Samuel, they had Brandon Ayuk, they had McCaffrey and Brock Purdy still, but 12-5. It was a completely different mentality than the 12-5 this year. This year it seems like 12-5, wow, they're kind of almost unexpectedly 12-5, and that year they were the potential. And I mean, to be 12-5, they should be. They expected it. And maybe that's why the Philadelphia Eagles, the expectations are so high after winning a Super Bowl that maybe that's why the mentality there, maybe the aggression, the sense of urgency isn't what we would expect from a team that is coming back from a Super Bowl. Maybe there's a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover, whereas the 49ers maybe are a little bit more hungry for it this year, just in the mental state of everyone in the locker room, just kind of across the board.
Do you think it's so important to get off to a good start for the 49ers on Sunday?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another reason why it's so important is because the crowd. They've got to take the crowd out of the game. I think that's kind of the equalizer for the Philadelphia Eagles is the crowd. If they can silence the crowd there and not have them be loud, I think the 49ers even out the playing field. Those Eagles fans are relentless, and they can be loud, and they will be screaming obscenities. And then, as Matt Barrows said, our friend, they'll sing the song.
The song. The Fly Eagles Fly song. I know a certain reporter who you may or may not have just mentioned who has requested a seat in the second row of the press box because he's afraid that the window is going to fly open and he's going to be sucked out into the crowd and get the crowd surf down, and there's people will I don't know, take chunks out of his leg or something as they pass him around.
I mean, they are relentless. The story that Matt's referring to, of course, is when we were in the press box a couple years ago, and the press box is closed. The windows slide shut, but they don't necessarily lock. Right in front of the press box. It's not like Levi's where there's glass and it's just, there's no one in front of you. This is a stadium where the back row of fans can turn around and look right into your eyes if you're in the first row of the press box. So if you haven't listened to our podcast before, we're explaining it now. They can turn around and bang on that window, and it is inches from your laptop and maybe a foot away from your face. So they know where the away team reporters sit. They know their home team reporters, and they know who to try to intimidate. Not that it affects what happens on the field, but they just want to intimidate anyone that has anything to do with the 49ers or the away team.
Well, I think in the window in front of me and Matt Barrows flew open as Dre Greenlaw was doing the pile driving act on Devontae Smith, and Big Dom got involved. So that was a little bit of an issue there.
It was a very colorful game.
Back in the 2023 regular season. So, all right. Well, enough talk as the 49ers and the Eagles face off, and it should be a very interesting game because you mentioned the expectations of the Eagles. They won the Super Bowl last year. They return everybody. It was basically, let's run it back. Let's bring back the same players by and large.
We've heard this before.
And you know what? The story of both teams has yet to be written because it might turn out that was absolutely the right call for the Eagles. I think probably you'd have a hard time finding anybody that would disagree with trying to run back a team that dominated Kansas City in the Super Bowl last year, but it hasn't probably worked exactly, or at least I'll put it this way. It didn't work in the regular season like they expected it to, but now is this veteran team, the team that won the Super Bowl, are they capable of just turning it on once the postseason begins? We shall see. And this 49ers team, are they capable with so many new faces? And heck, we don't even, I can name one starting linebacker for the 49ers on Sunday, and I don't know who the other two are going to be. So it should be an interesting game, should be a fun game to watch. All these games look to be highly competitive, and this much we know. If the Packers, let me get this right. If the Packers beat the Bears, then the 49ers, if they win, would play the Rams-Panthers winner.
Right.
if the 2 seed Bears win, then the 49ers would be the worst remaining seed, and they would have a rematch against Seattle up in Seattle. So that's where it stands right now. Those games, the games that would impact the 49ers' next opponent or the Eagles' next opponent, those games take place on Saturday. So by the time we all go to bed Saturday night, we will know who the 49ers would be playing in the next round if they can get past the Eagles. I think that's easier said than done. The Eagles are going to be a really tough team to face. And I don't know, should be a very interesting weekend around the NFL.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right. This has been 49ers Talk. Stay where you are. You know why? Because after these words from our sponsors, we hear from Mr. Greg Papa, the voice of the 49ers. He was behind the mic for the 49ers regular season finale. Unfortunately, he won't be going to Philadelphia, but he has plenty to say about this 49ers Eagles matchup. All right, we're back on 49ers Talk, brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Toyota, let's go places. And I am joined now by the voice of the 49ers, Greg Pop. And Greg, you made your return to the booth Saturday night. I know the game didn't turn out the way you wanted. You didn't get to fully test those vocal cords, but how did it go?
It was a lot. It was a lot of work getting in and out of the booth logistically. And once I got in the booth and my voice wasn't powerful that night, I was hoping it'd be a little better. I was hoping I'd get 1 or 2 touchdown San Francisco's, and team that had averaged 42.3 points a game the previous 3 got exactly 3 for me on Saturday night, which I think is more about Seattle and their great defense. So overall, it was an amazing experience for me, and I think a lot of the people that I saw, like yourself, that I haven't seen in so long. But unfortunately, I can't go to Philadelphia. That's the hard part. I went in for a doctor's checkup on Monday and a new bag of Blina, the immunotherapy I am on, and the lumbar puncture and all that. And the medical staff came in. I want to commend you. You know, the Bears game, you wound up not doing that game. You didn't think you could do it. You know, what a great, smart decision that was. Heard you on the game against Seattle, and the team didn't play great, but you made a good decision. You're ready to come back for that. So we applaud you. And I said, thank you. And I said, what do you think about me going to Philadelphia? And they went, oh my God, no. Why would you ask us that? Like, you can't go across the country with this immunotherapy infusing in your body, so you can't do that. So in this game, you know, obviously a playoff game. It's Philadelphia, where my brother was a sportscaster for years and years, and lost him to prostate cancer at age 54 back in 2009. So Philadelphia is my second home. So that's going to be difficult for me to miss this game, Maddie. But even though I won't be there physically, I'll be there in spirit and emotionally. And let's just hope the offense that we saw, those 6 games that Brock Purdy, a quarterback, comes back. I think there'll be some moments where Philadelphia can dominate the game with their skill on defense, their young D linemen in particular, and their secondary. But I don't think it's going to be 60 minutes of a pounding the way the Seattle Seahawks dominated the Niners offense on Saturday night.
Yeah, what do the 49ers have to do offensively they went up against a good defense, as you mentioned, against Seattle. They're facing another good defense, maybe not quite at the level of Seattle, but still, you know, a team that won the Super Bowl last year and returns almost everybody. What do you see as like kind of the major points that the 49ers have to hit in this game in order to come out of it with a victory?
Detonate CMC. They've got to run the football against this team. When I was getting ready for the Seattle game, I kept asking people in my eyes, I'm like, do the Seahawks have a weakness on defense? Where are they weak? Who can we attack? There are a couple of things I think they could have gotten into, maybe some, you know, design QB runs from Brock, but they didn't get enough first downs, and, you know, they couldn't convert on third down. But they could not run the ball. And Seattle's defense is the best rush defense in football. Philadelphia's has been good, but they've had some games where they just got trucked. And the one game in particular, the Black Friday game at the Link when Chicago came in, and put up almost 300 yards rushing. Both backs went for over 100, and that's what the Niners have to do, is take that Ben Johnson game plan, and whether it's outside zone or inside zone, gap, power, whatever you want to do, I think all of it. But they're dominant. There'll be times Jalen Carter, number 98, just takes whoever, Dom Pooney, Jake Brendel, both of them in each hand and just throws them away and goes in and stuffs McCaffrey. But there'll be times where he'll stunt. He'll move to, their line kind of slides with motion, and you can get them to move to one direction. And then you just kind of like you're a basketball player setting a screen and just push him out of the way and you run right behind it. He will take himself out of the play occasionally with their youth. So that's where Kyle, his mind, Chris Furster, get Juszczyk involved in Kittle and get Trent back for this game. So a lot of things have to go your way in this game. But first and foremost, Christian McCaffrey has to be back to the guy that he was almost all of this year. And then, I know the numbers aren't good, but still, he just had nothing going on. Whether it was checkdowns out of the backfield, the ball that he bobbled and could not run the ball. And the other side of it is Saquon for them. I mean, when you look at the last two offensive players of the year, Saquon last year, Christian in 23, both were on the cover of Madden the following year. I don't know if there's a curse or not, but Saquon's not been as strong. But if either one of these great running backs dominates the game more than the other, that team is going to have a huge advantage. But what happens if neither does? Or what happens if both do? Then what are the other factors that come into play? But first and foremost, Christian McCaffrey has got to return to form in this game.
Is this kind of a strength versus strength, 49ers offense against the Eagles defense, and kind of a weakness versus weakness, the Eagles offense against the 49ers defense?
Yeah, in some respects. I mean, 20 sacks and 6 interceptions are hard. And the one thing about Jalen Hurts, he doesn't turn the ball over, only 6 interceptions. 4 came in one game, though. I was watching that game back a couple of days ago against the Chargers on Monday Night Football. But they don't throw it a lot. Their offense, though, I think it's the most expensive offense in the history of pro football. When you look at it, I think I read that when the year started. The quarterback makes a lot of money. He's one of the highest paid players in football. I remember once you pay the quarterback, you can't pay anybody else. How much do those 2 wide receivers make? A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. How much does the tight end make, Dallas Goedert? How much does the offensive line make? What are they paying Lane Johnson? They got great personnel that are either on their way to Canton or some of them. I don't know if I'd say Saquon's there yet. He's got more work to do, but they're certainly dominant talent. They've just sputtered. And the reason is this quarterback needs a running game. Jalen Hurts needs to play off of a running game. When he had, Saquon dominating the league, one of the greatest offensive seasons from a running back ever. And when you look at what he did in the playoffs, too, he didn't have a great Super Bowl, but it was one of the greatest running back seasons ever. It all started from that, and they could play off of that. You take Barkley away, now all of a sudden he's not a drop back quarterback. So I think the big thing is going to be, remember when we went there in 23, December the 3rd, the way the 49ers rushed or didn't rush Jalen Hurts. It was a very controlled mush rush. Even with Nick Bosa, ever since Kasarek's been here, it's been GTFO, get the F off, let's go. We're not doing that. Ends, Nick, as fast as you are, you've got to come together with the tackle next to you. And the other end, whoever that is going to be, you got to come all together. Otherwise, this quarterback has a way to step up and get out. And if he gets to his left out, he's going to run. If he gets to his right, he could still be a thrower. But we're going to make him beat us from the pocket. Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl MVP. He played in another Super Bowl. He would have been the MVP of that game if Mahomes didn't steal it from him. So he has played his best in the biggest games. There's no doubt. But there are a lot of snaps where you're like, you see the field on that? Where's the ball going there? He looks like a 1-2 run guy. He looks at one spot. Sometimes he's a 1 and done, and he runs. Sometimes he's a 1-2. He's not a Brock, though. He's not a 1 to 2 to 3 to check it down to McCaffrey, see the whole grid. He's not that, but he squats 600 pounds. He does things that you can't do. So I know it's the 49er defense is really young, obviously. And they have, play Wallow in this game at off the ball linebacker. I like Kendricks, but that could be an area they exploit a little bit. He's mainly a special teams player. But Philadelphia's offense has underachieved, but they're not underpaid. It's not understarred. They got the biggest stars in their team around their offensive side, so they can look bad. They are a schizophrenic team. They are like the 2025 San Francisco Giants, the baseball team, where they go up and down. And I've seen Philly get out in Dallas, 21-0 lead, like boom, wow, they look great. Then they don't score the rest of the game. In Buffalo, they got out to a first half lead of 13-0. They're going to dominate this game. Jalen Hurts did not complete a pass the rest of the game. What? Are you kidding me? So I know what you're saying, but I think this is one where they just got to play top-down defense, solid defense. Don't get beat over the top. Devontae Smith can beat you over the top. Remember the championship game before Brock got hurt, that fourth down big play where he actually did not catch the ball? Kyle should have challenged it, but it just they rushed to the line and ran the next play. He went up on fourth down and made a huge play. He goes up, little skinny guy, the Slim Reaper, runs so beautiful routes. He looks like Paul Warfield and Lynn Swann all into one. And then he goes up in the air, and this little skinny guy will, take it off the top of the backboard. It's like, how'd he do that? And he's tough. And then A.J. Brown just runs. He runs a slant, he runs a hitch, and he runs a go. That's all he runs. But you can't stop him. He's just a big badass. You got to, he at the catch point, he's going to take it away. So I know what you're saying. The real interesting element will be Kyle against Lord Fangio. But on the other side, Philadelphia's star-studded offense against what Robert Saleh has left. How many points can Philly score? How many points do the Niners need to win this game? Can you win with 24? Are you going to get to 34? That's probably going to be hard. I know one thing. You got to get more than 3, or you are going to lose the game. Can they get to 23 and win the game? But their offense is going to be up and down and all around. But if they get on a heater, and they can do it, if they just do it for like 2 quarters, and they get up on you like 17-0, then you play into what they want to do defensively, and it's hard to come back.
It's funny when you're talking about the 49ers pass rush and how they just have to contain Jalen Hurts. I almost kind of think that this is a game where the 49ers pass rush can impact it without even touching Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
Like there aren't going to be guys selling out for sacks because they don't get sacks, but it's really about making sure that he doesn't get the easy 15 yards with his legs right up the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not doing as many design quarterback runs. First 10 weeks of the year, the numbers were way down. They're doing a little bit more now later in the year. In fact, I was watching a game where he went to a check and he was calling Django, Django, Django. And then he checked to a design quarterback draw in the low red zone. I don't know if that was what he was checking to or if it was how they were going to block it, but 7 yards later, he ran in the end zone untouched. So he will do all that. I do fear him more as a runner than a thrower, although he's capable. I mean, he throws the ball deep. He's kind of like Lamar Jackson light, where he's not the runner Lamar Jackson is. He's going to make more first downs than touchdowns, except when they do the tush push and the brotherly shove, which, by the way, has not been nearly as effective, which will change the way they call the game in all areas. And certainly, when you get down to like a 3rd and 3, it changes the way they call it. But he's got those huge thighs, and he can run. But I'm saying mush the rush. It's what they did last time. Maybe now Philadelphia knows that. Maybe they roll him out of the pocket and they don't do that. They have a plan for how they want him to handle it. But I think you fear Jalen Hurts more as a runner and a broken play thrower than a straight drop back quarterback. Although, like Lamar, he can throw the deep one. All of a sudden, he'll just drop a deep one like, ooh, wow, where'd that come from? And hit Devontae right in the hands on stride. The one guy I do worry about a little bit in this game with, it's the mush rush is Bryce Huff, the former Eagle, because he's the one guy that has the GTFO classic Niner trait, not just the 10-yard split, the first 2 or 3 steps, and he's just all get off. You can't, if you do that too fast, and whoever's inside, next to you, could be Gross Matos, could be Keon White. If they're a couple of steps behind you and he has that escape hatch to get out under you, that's what you don't want to let him be. So that's one guy in this game, Maddie. No one's talking about. I've read a couple of articles about Bryce Huff. He's a former Eagle. Did not go well there. They won a Super Bowl with him on the roster. He didn't feel like he did. And, those fans are going to be on him. If they're going to pick out any 49er to just give the Philadelphia, Santa Claus bit to, it's going to be Bryce Huff. So, and he's got to be disciplined in this game with the rush if they do the mush rush. And also, this quarterback will zone read you. He will pull it out. There'll be plays where he puts it in the belly of Saquon as he sees 47 come flying down to blow it all up. He'll just pull it out and go right around the edge and run for 17 yards.
Yeah, but Bryce Huff not active for any of the postseason games last year with the Eagles after signing a 3-year, $51.1 million contract. Jordan Mailata, the Eagles' outstanding left tackle, was asked about going up against Bryce Huff, and he said that Huff will be ready, or he'll be excited 100%. And he goes, "Can't wait to see Super Bowl champ Bryce Huff." Which is a major dig because Bryce Huff was like, "I don't even consider this Super Bowl ring mine." Wow. He didn't earn it.
He's not going to get you, brother. He lines up on the other side. He'll be over Lane Johnson's side, Mailata.
Okay, so I got to just Brock Purdy in the evolution, in the career, and the legacy of Brock Purdy. I know he's still a very young man, but what does this game mean for him to go back there? I know he already had that great game in the 2023 regular season against the Eagles, 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, 40 yards, blowout victory. But what does Brock Purdy have to do, and what does this game mean for him?
Just be Brock. Be Brock steady. See the field. And Brock's as good as anybody. This is a tough place to go play. There's no doubt. And when he walks in there, does he think about Hassan Reddick coming around the edge of Tyler Kroft and getting into his elbow? Brock did not make a great play on that. He should have stepped up in the pocket. If he would have stepped up and threw the rush, Brandon Ayuk was open on the left. Could have been a big play. Does he think about that game? Does he think about the next year going in there December the 3rd and laying 6 touchdowns on them and 6 possessions? Just see the field, be clear. I don't worry about Brock. Brock did not play well against Seattle. I'm not going to say he did. But I think early in the game, you could see his eyes just get dark and deep. And you don't want to, he doesn't have a thought bubble. But in my mind, he was saying, damn, we can't block them. I don't trust this pass rush. And then just think about it, what you're trying to do. Even when an NFL play is well blocked, Matt, it is chaos. There's so much to see. If it's not blocked and they're just coming at you and it's just, the house is on fire. How do I get out of here? So you wind up doing things you don't do with a the even breather, the flatliner. Be that guy again. But what does this game mean to George Kittle? What does this game mean to Trent Williams? What does this game mean to Christian McCaffrey? What does this game mean to Kyle Juszczyk? They've all won. They've won more before Brock got here. And Trent, came here to win. They've been denied. They've been denied. They saw their team lose a lot of great teammates this year because of finances. Well, next year, will it be me? How long do we have? So it's a playoff game. You lose the game, you're done. It's over. There's a finality to that. And they know that. So I know he's the quarterback. Brock has to do this, and he has to prove that he's the $265 million. He doesn't think that way. He just wants to go execute the offense, get him into the right play, see the field clearly, get the ball to where it's supposed to get to. He didn't do that enough on Saturday night because they sped him up. I think he'll be fine. Maybe they'll rush him up, but he won't be. But it's everybody. Christian McCaffrey misses a block in the A-gap against Jalen Carter. Brock's the one who's going to get tagged because of Christian. So it's everybody. And it's the young guys that have never played. I worry about that more. Upton Stout's done great. He's going to have to deal with Devontae Smith in the slot a lot on Sunday late afternoon. So I know it comes down to the quarterback in the simplest form. That's where all our eyes go. But this is a team sport, the ultimate team sport. They need to pick Brock up. They need to have his back. They did not. They scored 3 points on Saturday night against Seattle because everybody around Brock let him down. And it's hard because Seattle's that good. And then Brock was taken down that rabbit hole where he just wasn't himself.
Yeah. All right, 1:30 p.m. on Pacific on Sunday, 49ers and the Eagles. Thanks for tuning in to 49ers Talk. Appreciate it. And also, Greg, great to hear your voice. Great to see you, and enjoy the weekend.
Love you, brother, as always.